My former friend almost destroyed my career and my life. See how I overcame it all. For years, I believed my life was under control. I would wake up early, put on my lab coat, and enter the hospital as if wearing invisible armor, ready to face any emergency. Medicine had always been my purpose, the reason for every choice I'd made in life. Every patient I saw, every correct diagnosis, gave me the feeling of accomplishing something greater, of leaving my mark on the world. However, as prepared as I felt for medical crises, I was nowhere near prepared to deal with what was about to happen. The persecution of someone I once considered a friend. It all began subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a shadow slowly approaching without you noticing. A simple text message, full of nostalgia and affection, was enough to open a door I never should have opened. At that moment, I didn't know it, but I was entering a nightmare that would shake my personal and professional life, shatter my confidence, and force me to fight for my own sanity and dignity. I still didn't understand that some people hide obsession behind smiles, and that friendship, when it becomes possessive, can turn into a silent and devastating weapon. My name is Rosangela. I'm 36 years old, and I'm a general practitioner. At the time this story began, my life seemed peaceful and balanced. A solid relationship with Caio, my boyfriend, who always supported me, a circle of trusted friends, and my parents, Renato and Marlene, who were my emotional safe haven, always there to listen, support, and protect. I believed my world was secure, that the effort and dedication to my career had created a solid routine without any major external threats. I worked hard, but I enjoyed what I did. I found beauty in the little things. Coffee with my parents, a simple dinner with Caio, moments of silence that allowed me to organize my thoughts. I truly felt happy and complete. However, what seemed like stability was only a momentary illusion. Life has a cruel way of testing our strength, and sometimes the greatest threat comes from where we least expect it. Someone who shared your childhood, someone who should have been nothing more than a memory and affection, but who turned everything into a threat, surveillance, and manipulation. Rachel was my childhood friend. We grew up together, sharing secrets, dreams, and moments that seemed eternal. For years, we lost touch, and each of us went on with our own lives. When she reappeared, it was with a simple message: "Rosangela, I miss you so much. I saw you became a doctor. I'm so proud of you." In that moment, I felt a warm, nostalgic feeling, thinking about how time flies, how people can reconnect. I responded cordially, thinking it would just be a light conversation, reminiscing about the past, laughing about our teenage antics. But it wasn't long before her questions became invasive, excessive. Where I lived, my schedule, who I hung out with, even intimate details of my routine. Everything seemed casual, but something inside me began to signal alarm bells. I wanted to believe it was just the curiosity of someone who had been distant for years, but Rachel had an obsessive pattern that I still couldn't understand. Each message that arrived carried a strange sensation, almost as if she were testing boundaries, probing every aspect of my life, trying to find loopholes. I didn't realize it, but I was beginning to enter a cycle of surveillance that would transform my routine and well-being into an emotional minefield. Caio was the first to realize something was wrong. He noticed subtle patterns, small coincidences that I hadn't noticed before. Rachel would show up at places I frequented, always with a smile and a plausible explanation, but always present, always watching. Comments on social media began to surface, fake accounts insinuating things about my personal and professional life, and I still struggled to believe someone could be so calculating. Every time I tried to ignore it, something new would appear. Flowers delivered to the hospital, constant messages, unexpected gifts, all designed to destabilize me and create a feeling of constant surveillance. I tried to rationalize, find excuses, believe in Rachel's good faith, but deep down, something inside me told me this wasn't normal, that the friendship had turned into an obsession. Fear began to creep in, subtle but present, eroding the confidence I had in my own judgment. The first direct attack came in the form of an anonymous email at the hospital. They accused me of negligence in a case that never existed. I was called in for clarification, and for the first time in my career, I felt shame and powerlessness over something I didn't do. My hands trembled, my heart raced, and I felt like all my effort and dedication could be unraveled by a moment of planned malice. The investigation found no wrongdoing, but doubt had already been planted. I began to realize that Rachel didn't just want attention or reconnection. She wanted to destroy. It was at that point that I realized I was facing something bigger than I imagined. The childhood friendship had become a weapon against my own life, and I needed to find the strength to face something that seemed invisible, but that was eating away at me every day. After the first attack, things only got worse. Small, nasty comments began to circulate among hospital colleagues. Insinuations about my professional ethics, rumors about my personal life, whispered doubts that spread like wildfire. No one knew where they were coming from, but I could feel the stares, the hidden smiles, the silent judgment. Social media began to be overrun with fake profiles spreading rumors. Some friends began to distance themselves, perhaps out of fear of getting involved or unsure how to support me. Rachel was everywhere at once, invisible and relentless, as if she were surrounding me without me realizing it. I began to doubt myself. Every notification, every comment, every message felt like a threat. I felt exhausted, vulnerable, and desperate, unsure of who to trust. Kaio tried to comfort me, but even he couldn't fully understand what it meant to be attacked by someone you once considered a friend. The feeling of being trapped emotionally and digitally was overwhelming. For weeks, I cried alone at night, asking myself why anyone would do this, how friendship could turn into stalking, and why it seemed like no one could see the truth. It was at that moment that Joseph entered my life. He was Kaio's friend and a digital security expert. Joseph began discreetly investigating, tracking the fake accounts, the emails, the manipulated messages. With each piece of evidence he uncovered, my heart alternated between relief and dread. Relief knowing Rachel was being identified, dread realizing how calculating and obsessive she was. It was with his help that I understood the extent of what I was facing. It wasn't just defamation, but meticulous persecution designed to destabilize me emotionally and professionally. The feeling of vulnerability was intense. I could barely sleep, my appetite vanished, and every sound or ring on my cell phone put me on alert. Even amidst the chaos, I began to organize myself. I learned that survival wasn't just about resisting, but also about planning, documenting, and seeking legal support. Joseph and the lawyer we hired became my technical pillars, while Kaio and my parents supported me emotionally. I realized that to survive this storm, I needed strong allies, strategies, and courage that I didn't yet know I fully possessed. The lawyer specializing in cyber harassment explained to me that the process would be long and exhausting, but necessary. Rachel had violated court orders, spread lies, and created situations that compromised my reputation. The feeling of helplessness, however, didn't disappear. Each new message from her was a threat, each new fake, a counter reminder that the harassment wouldn't end immediately. I began to have anxiety attacks, feeling panicky when opening emails or messages. My professional routine became burdensome, not only because of work, but also because of the constant vigilance of what might be happening online. Kaio remained by my side, but he too began to feel the weight of the situation. Distant friends offered support, but few understood the extent of the harassment. I knew I had to resist, even though each day was a battle. Each morning, I woke up scared, but decided to face the day was a small victory. It was also during this time that Emily, Rachel's younger sister, contacted me. She was frightened by her sister's obsession and wanted to warn me about possible retaliation. During our conversation, Emily revealed details I couldn't have imagined. Rachel had been envious of me since adolescence, always comparing me to everything. And seeing my success, a silent, obsessive rage took hold. Hearing this was painful, but at the same time liberating. For the first time, someone from within that circle offered me perspective, an explanation for what seemed senseless. The information helped me organize my defense and, more importantly, understand that it was never my fault, that Rachel's obsession was unjustified, and that I needed to focus on my own recovery. Meanwhile, the attacks continued, but I began developing strategies to protect myself. I documented every email, every message, every suspicious behavior. I kept a detailed record of everything, knowing that the truth needed to be proven so I could get my life back. Therapy helped me deal with my anxiety and fears, and the constant presence of Kaio, my parents, and Joseph reminded me that I was not alone. The realization that there were people willing to fight with me gave me strength I didn't know I had. I learned, day after day, that resistance isn't just about enduring, but also about reacting with intelligence and courage. It was during this period that I realized that overcoming would require not only patience, but also strategy, support, and determination to rebuild everything that was being threatened. The turning point began when Joseph managed to gather irrefutable digital evidence against Rachel. There were screenshots of messages, IP addresses, audio recordings, and emails that proved the stalking, defamation, and manipulation I had been suffering for months. For the first time, I felt a mix of hope and fear. Hope because there was finally solid evidence. Fear because taking the situation to court meant confronting Rachel head-on and publicly testifying to her obsessive behavior. We hired a lawyer specializing in cyberbullying and defamation, who carefully compiled a comprehensive dossier, ready to be used in both civil and criminal lawsuits. I remember the first formal meeting with her. My hands were shaking, my heart racing, my mind racing with questions about what would happen if Rachel's eyes continued to deny everything. But the lawyer said something that stuck with me. "Rosangela, the truth can be temporarily silenced, but it cannot be erased. Now we have the chance to show its reality to the world." That was a turning point. I realized I wasn't just fighting for justice, but for my own sanity, for my right to continue my life without fear. For the first time in months, I felt a thread of control returning to my hands, and with it, the determination to face whatever came, no matter how difficult. As the process progressed, I still faced suspicious looks at the hospital. Some colleagues greeted me hesitantly, others avoided contact, as if wanting to protect their reputations before believing me. It was frustrating to realize that truth doesn't impose itself, that even in the face of evidence, social judgment sometimes precedes justice. But each day of patience and each respectful interaction strengthened me. I learned to carry myself firmly, to display confidence, even when I felt fear inside. Rachel continued to send provocative messages, but now I was prepared not to react emotionally. I learned to filter out the provocations, to keep my focus on what really mattered, justice and rebuilding my life. With each small daily victory, whether in court or at work, my self-esteem and confidence grew. The feeling of regaining control over my own narrative was liberating. I began to realize that my life could return to normal, even if gradually, and that the fear I felt no longer needed to dominate my choices. It was also during this period that Rachel's younger sister, Emily, became an unexpected source of support and information. She told me that her sister's obsession stemmed from years of comparisons, resentments, and insecurities built up since adolescence. Emily explained that Rachel could never handle my success, and that each achievement of mine aroused feelings of envy and anger, mixed with an irrational desire to control my life. Hearing the perspective of someone inside the antagonist's family was painful, but enlightening. For the first time, everything made sense. The attacks, the surveillance, the fake accounts, and the emotional manipulation were the fruits of a deep-rooted obsession. Knowing this gave me strength, because I understood that my responsibility was not to fix Rachel, but to protect myself, preserve myself, and seek justice. Empathy for Emily and clarity about the situation helped me better organize my strategies, strengthening me to face each new attack with confidence and intelligence. The case progressed, and Rachel continued to try to undermine my life in every way. I had to deal with the constant fear of new actions, new accusations, and unexpected retaliation. Each morning was an exercise in courage, waking up, facing work, looking people in the eye, and continuing to live despite the persecution. It was both an external and internal struggle. I had to learn to separate my emotions from what was rationally necessary to prove the truth. Every step I took, every record I documented, every contact with lawyers and experts was a reminder that I was on the right path. My social life, my mental health, and even my relationship with Kayo were put to the test. But with each challenge, I grew, learning resilience and how to deal with the complexity of a conflict that involved technology, emotional manipulation, and constant threats. The culmination of the struggle came on the day of the trial. I sat in the courtroom next to Kayo, feeling my palms sweat and my heart racing. Rachel tried to portray herself as the victim, distorting facts and manipulating the narrative, but the evidence was irrefutable. Every document, every recording, every message revealed the reality I had lived through: the obsessive stalking, the invasion of privacy, the defamation. When the judge handed down the sentence in my favor, I felt a mixture of relief, gratitude, and a profound emotion that almost brought me to tears. Justice had been served. It wasn't just a victory against Rachel, but a victory over the fear, anxiety, and sense of helplessness that had consumed me for months. For the first time, I felt like my life was mine again, that my story would no longer be distorted, and that I could finally breathe freely and rebuild my future without the constant shadow of threats. After the trial, the feeling of victory was liberating, but it also brought to light another challenge: rebuilding my emotional and professional life. The persecution had left deep scars, not only on my self-esteem, but also on my perception of trust in people and the world around me. Returning to the hospital wasn't immediate or easy. I needed to relearn how to feel safe, how to deal with the suspicious looks and malicious comments that still circulated discreetly among colleagues. Each step was accompanied by a mix of anxiety and determination. I began attending therapy regularly, learning to identify triggers and develop strategies to manage my anxiety. Kayo remained by my side, offering constant support and infinite patience. My parents remained my foundation, reinforcing that the truth would always prevail and that my dignity could not be shaken by the actions of others. Each small step forward, like being able to see patients without fear or returning to work meetings, was a significant personal victory. Over time, I realized that rebuilding didn't mean going back to how I was before, but rather evolving into a more conscious and resilient version of myself. I learned to prioritize my emotional well-being and set clear boundaries regarding any attempts at invasion or manipulation, understanding that my safety and peace of mind were more important than pleasing everyone or constantly proving my integrity. Kayo, my partner and unconditional support, was one of my greatest pillars during this period of reconstruction. He accompanied me every step of the way, not only holding my hand in moments of despair, but also helping me realize that my strength was present even when I felt fragile. There were times when he too was exhausted, but he never gave up. This partnership strengthened not only our relationship, but also my self-confidence. We began to resume projects and plans that had been put on hold, such as trips, get-togethers with friends, and even discussions about our future together. The simple act of planning something enjoyable became therapeutic, a way to rebuild normalcy and joy. Little by little, I realized that life continued despite the trauma, and that there was room for happiness, love, and fulfillment. The painful experience taught me the importance of carefully choosing who I share my trust with, but it also reinforced that healthy relationships, built on respect and reciprocity, are fundamental to weathering crises. At the hospital, resuming my professional career required courage. I faced curious looks, whispers, and silent judgments, but I maintained my firm stance. The hospital board, upon learning of the court ruling and all the evidence, offered a public apology, acknowledging the harm the harassment had caused. Resuming my daily duties and donning my lab coat again was a symbolic gesture of power and autonomy. Each patient I saw, each piece of advice I gave to residents, each small gesture of care reaffirmed my purpose in medicine and in life. Gradually, the attacks and gossip faded, as the truth had been proven and was now documented and legally backed. The feeling of regaining my professional and social standing brought me not only relief, but also renewed confidence in my ability to overcome adversity. One of the most memorable moments of this reconstruction was the reunion with Emily, Rachel's younger sister. She told me that Rachel had sought psychiatric help and was undergoing treatment. This information brought mixed feelings: sadness at realizing the depth of her illness and relief at knowing she was receiving care that could prevent further attacks. With Emily, I established a discreet communication based on mutual understanding and respect for boundaries. From this perspective, I was finally able to accept that I didn't need to carry constant anger. Rachel's obsession stemmed from her own internal issues, not my personal failing. This acceptance was a fundamental step in my emotional recovery, allowing me to focus on my life, my relationships, and my personal and professional growth. Experience has taught me that overcoming suffering doesn't mean erasing pain or forgetting the past, but rather rebuilding oneself with greater awareness, strength, and purpose. Today, I use my story to inspire others facing persecution, defamation, or digital harassment. I give talks, offer guidance, and share my experience to empower victims, showing that it is possible to seek justice and reclaim one's life. I learned to transform suffering into learning, anger into motivation, and fear into intelligent caution. Each step I took in rebuilding my routine, my mental health, and my professional life was a reminder that resilience isn't innate, but built with effort, support, and determination. Looking back, I realized that every tear, Every sleepless night, every fear I faced was essential in making me the person I am today. Stronger, more aware, and capable of protecting not only my life, but also my peace and integrity. Over time, I realized that the greatest victory wasn't just legal, justice, but rebuilding my confidence and autonomy. Rachel had lost the power she once held over me, but more importantly, I regained control of my own life. Every step I took to protect myself, every strategy I implemented, every record of evidence not only strengthened me but also taught me resilience, patience, and assertiveness. I came to understand that extreme situations require planning, courage, and above all, the support of trusted people. Kayo, Joseph, my parents, and even Emily were indispensable pillars in this process. I learned that no one needs to face crises alone and that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, but rather of intelligence and self-care. This awareness became one of the greatest lessons of my journey. True strength lies not only in the ability to resist, but also in the ability to surround yourself with allies, understand the situation, and act with clarity and strategy. With each passing day, my routine became lighter and safer. I returned to seeing patients with enthusiasm, resumed interrupted projects, and regained the emotional stability that had been shaken. I learned to filter interactions, identify signs of manipulation, and protect my digital and emotional life. My relationship with Kayo grew even stronger. Each obstacle we faced together reinforced the trust and partnership between us. My parents, Renato and Marlene, continued to be my emotional foundation, always there to listen, support, and celebrate my small and large achievements. I realized that happiness, although shaken by external attacks, could be rebuilt with patience, care, and determination. This reconstruction was neither quick nor simple, but each step I took strengthened my resilience and my ability to deal with extreme situations without losing my essence. Today, I look back on that phase of my life with gratitude, albeit painful. It taught me the importance of trust, patience, resilience, and planning in the face of adversity. I learned that not all battles are visible and that victory can be silent but profoundly transformative. Rachel, although part of my story, no longer defines my present or my future. My life has become guided by conscious choices, the pursuit of emotional balance, and a commitment to protecting my integrity and well-being. Each challenge I faced became a lesson in limits, courage, and the value of allies who help us navigate seemingly endless storms. Reflecting on this entire journey, I see that overcoming obstacles is built on a combination of support, strategy, courage, and self-love. I've learned that life can throw up unexpected obstacles, coming from where you least expect them, but that it's possible to transform pain into learning, fear into strength, and persecution into opportunities for growth. Today, I feel more aware, resilient, and capable of protecting my life, my career, and my emotional peace. Experience has taught me that true victory isn't just about overcoming external problems, but also about rebuilding one's own life, strengthening oneself emotionally, and inspiring others to persevere in the face of adversity. My story is proof that, even when all seems lost, it's still possible to bounce back and find balance, justice, and personal fulfillment.